And welcome back inside Brunch. You heard me mention that I'll be dealing with an attorney. He's a criminal attorney. He is Raymond Morgan. We are going to talk about a number of things. One is what happened in that schoolyard, what those when arrested are likely to be charged with, what can be done if in fact the law can expand itself to those who recruit underage minors, of course, and if they are complicit in this and can be so charged. We're going to talk about all of that a little later on. But in talking about charging, there is an incident that is on every table this morning, an incident that's been on every table since all of this week, and that is the issue where you had two TV hosts involved in a situation, one a reporter, one a police officer at the scene of a crime, and Officer Alexander, who is the officer on duty, he attempted to remove the remove the reporter rather, and some physical physical encounter went on. You can look at the tape and you can form your own opinion from it. It is sub judice before the courts. We will wait until they rule on this. However, what we could see is something happened. What we did hear is that the situation was exacerbated as it were, by the obscenities being levied against the officer, that is Inspector Alexander. Mr. Allen said that no such thing happened. He also had his attorney on his program with him, at which they made it very clear, categorically, unequivocally, that no language was in fact used. We found out, however, later on that there was a unabridged or unedited version of this encounter in which obscenity was in fact levied. How that happened to leave the reporter hands into the editor's desk and then on to your TV screen is another issue. When I get into situations like this, I think of one person I can bring. Sunity Maharaj. She's a media consultant, journalism lecturer, head of her own multimedia production company. She is the former editor-in-chief of the Trinidad Express, news director of TV6, and group executive for editorial content development at One Caribbean Media. So let me say good morning. Sunity Maharaj, thank you so much for being with me this morning. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
You heard me lay the case out, and the question is...
Actually, no, I didn't, but go ahead.
You did not? Okay, so I just did a quick recap. I just realized that I did not hit your switch. I apologize. I just did for our listeners a quick recap of what we're looking at. The merits or demerits of what went on there is not really what we want to deal into. We do want to deal with a piece of evidence that said there was no obscenity, and that, according to Inspector Alexander, is part of the reason he had to physically restrain Mr. Allen. The statement was there was no profanity involved. It was repeated over and over. Then we got an unabridged copy that showed that, in fact, profanity was used. Obscenity was levied against the officer. My question to you then, as a journalism lecturer, what happened? Explain the process. How can a reporter or a cameraman bring a piece of work in? When they bring it into the station, bring it into the newsroom, what happens with it?
Well, you look at it and you determine what is the story, and then you write your story, and then you have your video supporting, and your video and your soundbites to support the story that you're seeing.
And if your position is, as we have heard, of course, as all media houses, we would say we're not going to broadcast obscenity. So normally we would beep it if that is the case, or if in fact we did exclude it for the what we call acceptable content. Once we realize it has become a part of the story, then the next thing you do is you move to make it clear that this is edited for content, or you hit the beep on it. That did not happen in this case. Why?
I think there are interpretations of the story. I'm not sure that a clear-cut case has been made about an attempt to censor the story. I've looked at the story, and it seemed to me the reporter was focused on what looks like abuse, police abuse. Slam the man, push him out, and so on. And you're looking at the video, and they clearly had the word, the F word, and took the position that we can't carry that because, you obviously you can't carry it on the air and, your license and so on. But if that was the basis for just editing out that part, they left the viewer in a bit of confusion because the viewer kept hearing the man, one of the defendant in this case saying, I cuss you. And so the viewer who does not have that other piece of information is not clear as to did he not. Is this a case of policeman has just a trumped up charge and because the person sounds incredulous, I thought you, and then or is it a case that it was not in the story? It may just be a case of a reporter, head of news, and so on saying, well, we can't carry that part. But then it amounts to bad journalism because it leaves that question unanswered. Or it could be, this is evidence in a case for somebody in our employ and we don't want to hide. So I think the onus is on CNC3 right now to make a statement and clear the air if they have done wrong in terms of was misjudgment as opposed to self-censorship, but in the net effect was, whether it was deliberate or not, it has censored the story. They need to put that on the table and they need to come straight with it.
It must be very, very, very bad judgment. Like I said, on the one hand, the first thing you do in our business is you beep it. Because you beep it, and even if you.
But your business, to be fair,
yes.
Rennie, is that you're live most of the time. So if you have got a delay button, you punch it, right?
Right.
In putting together a TV story, you're leaving a lot of tape on the floor, and somebody, and this is where we come to the issue of, do people have the training to make these decisions? Because now they face a charge of censorship, and can they answer the charge?
Well,
I don't think it was a censorship.
Let me just finish that thought for a second, Sunity, because my point is, on the one hand, that's how we would handle it. However, once if you decide to excise it because for the purpose of sanity and your license and so on, all of that's fine. I understand all that. But once the claim is made, once the claim is made, yes, that it was. Once the claim is made is that the situation got out of hand because of obscenity being leveled. You cannot continue running something without making it clear that this is an abridged version, because that becomes germane to the reason it got out of hand in the first place.
Well, there are so many gray areas in journalism now where you're not sure people they have the equipment to make the decisions. I've seen, for example, in print where people are doctoring news photos, and it's because it looks good. We had the case at the news some time ago where it looked, the woman with the skirt raised and so on, and she was near the fire, that was a doctor's photo. And so this is why the onus is on the CNCC to say something. Is this bad judgment? Is it bad journalism? Or is it deliberate self-censorship? And the public needs to know, because one is, there is the issue of public trust. Can we trust you to tell the news if you censor this? Or can we trust you if you don't know how to do the job? So they need to make a statement. Now, the other thing you've said is that there was denial about the existence of, that this had not been done, the use of profanity. Well, I don't think that the story on CNC3 said that, but in the Crime Watch program the next day, they were not saying that it did not happen. They kept saying there is no evidence, right? And I don't know if they knew what they were saying, or what was the purpose of saying that. But it turns out, as we know in court, it is not the truth. It is, do you have the evidence to support your position? And whether this tape that we have heard amounts to evidence, because remember, this is a case that is in court. This is the other issue that has arisen.
Sub judice, yes.
We're dealing with a media issue of ethics, serious issue of ethics. But we're also dealing with a matter that is central to a court case that has not yet been tried. Persons appeared in court. And so even with the broadcast of the tape showing, allegedly showing that, yes, well, you hear the sound. We don't hear it, but we are told there's the sound of that word, which is central to the case of obscenity. Is that the place to try that matter? So the public is being asked to come to a position of guilt or innocence on a court case as the media tries a case of censorship.
There are
complications in this story, and we all have to be careful about what we are saying, because are we saying the man is guilty? And this matter has not been heard in court. But it does raise a very germane question. as to whether a media house is so and so.
There are a lot of people, there are going to be a lot of casualties in this, because if you can categorically
Really?
go
Why do you think there's going to be a lot of casualties?
casualties, because, as you said, I mean, even if you take the utterance of the representative of the defendant, you take the attorney who said there is no evidence, is what he said. And to be quite frankly, I mean, there is evidence.
I saw a bit of it, and I'm not sure it was the attorney. I certainly heard one person there said there is no evidence. So there is no evidence does not mean something does not exist. It says there is no evidence.
There used to be a time, Sunity, when folks in the news department seeing something like this would throw their hands up and say, "I am prepared to leave on this basis." That does not seem to be the case.
I asked a question about casualties because this is the Guardian Media Group. They have been through repeated exercises of journalists taking a position about censorship, and they've written it through. They're still there, and it is always the journalists in the newsroom who stand up. It is not management. I mean, they stand up to management. So there may or may not be casualties, depending on what the journalists there decide they need to do. They are the ones to make the case very strongly for their own sake, for their own standing and their own and the public trust in them to push for that company to make a clear statement, whether it warrants an apology or whatever, that hold on.
The voice you're hearing on the other side is that of Sunity Maharaj. Yes, I can hear you very clearly. Go ahead, please.
Okay. So the owners, to me, this is what we are looking at now. What is the reaction of the journalists in that newsroom? Where is their position? The reporter on the story, Kamal George, is a very well-loved journalist, and he may be in a position that is very awkward, and he needs to take a position. You have your anchors, you have your head of news. We need to hear from these people whether their position squares with what management's position is, and whether they want to salvage public trust by making that statement. Some people may go so far as to say, well, if you have a serious difference of opinion here, if I have to go along with something that amounts to a professional, a problem here, I can't continue.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to see. So I think this is a story in motion. I don't think it's finished. I think it's going to develop over the coming days.
I think so. I think it's going to go on for a long time. Sunity Maharaj, who is the director of Lloyd Best Institute, also media consultant, journalism lecturer, and former editor-in-chief of the Trinidad Express. Sunity, thank you so much.
Let me just say, I don't lecture in journalism.
Oh, you don't?
And,
all right.
That was a time past,
Yes, well, it was a time past, but it's all part of what you have done.
I need to set the record straight at every point and everything. We need always to do that.
Talking about
why we're asking CNCP to do that. We need to do it.
Yeah, the accuracy right. All right, thank you so much. Sunity Maharaj, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Hope that you have yourself a wonderful Sunday. We will keep watching this story along with you.
Okay.
Thank you now. Take care of yourself now.